right, thank you very much. Let's move deeper now, talking about one particular issue here. Joining us today once more again this Thursday. He's here normally on Thursday on Fridays. I know I don't have to introduce him, but I have to. Joshua Moses, thank you very much for being here again with us.
Good morning.
I am honored by the introduction.
You need no introduction.
I'm not that popular.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. How's your week been so far?
Well, it's been fantastic. It's been stressful actually, but it's a privilege to work. So we work, we stress, we rest, we come to City FM and we talk Nigeria.
All right, talking about a problem, a potential issue that affects everybody. Not a potential issue, something that affects everybody. Electricity. On Monday, if you've been following the events around the electricity sector here in Nigeria, Enugu Electricity Regulatory Commission did come out to say they're reducing tariff for Band A customers, from 209 kilowatts per unit to 160 kilowatts, 160 naira per kilowatt, and it has drawn a lot of reaction from people, Nigerians who feel that, okay, this can actually be implemented across board in different states. That should be happening. Already the Discos are coming out to oppose that, and that is the leading story this morning from The Punch. Tariff battle escalates as Discos reject review talks with the states. Now, Commissioner of Energies across different states, came out on Wednesday to say that, we're ready to meet with the power Discos across the country to negotiate electricity tariffs and that are reflective and not burdensome on residents. But the Discos have kicked against any form of negotiation with states on power tariffs, stressing that the move by the state governments might kill the power sector. If you read that some more, to the end of the full article and what it says there on The Punch, it's a twofold issue, a twofold complaint from the Discos and Gencos. They're saying that this is going to affect us. We're going to bear the burden of the losses that will come from this if we reduce this. And they're also saying that the state regulatory commissions do not have the power to negotiate the power reduction with them, that they've not implemented what is necessary for them. What exactly is the situation with this, and how can we remedy this to ensure that, if possible, like it's done in Enugu State, we can actually have that form of reduction for tariffs across board?
Okay, so the question is, where did Enugu State government derive its power? It's from the Electricity Act 2024, I think, that empowers states. 2023, I guess so. That empowers states to regulate. Electricity was removed from the exclusive list and placed in the other one, concurrent, I think. So the idea is now that states with the right electricity framework that's passed this into law can now come in and say, this is how we want the electricity to be, of course with negotiation. And the idea is also attract investment into the sector and basically make it productive. Now Enugu State government said that they've done their cost analysis, and what the distribution company, I think Main Power something in Enugu, there is charging them, is charging consumers on Band A is way higher. That their cost is about, I think, 194 kilowatts per 94 naira per kilowatt. But they said, we will not drop you down from the whole 200 and I think 260 or 206 that they are charging, but we'll still give you room to do this. Now, what the distribution companies and Gencos are not coming out to tell us is how much exactly does it cost to generate. Because now there's also, the government is also saying, the Enugu State government is also saying, you are subsidized by about 45 naira by the federal government. So bearing in mind your subsidy and the current prices you charge, there should be room for you to be flexible on the prices. The Discos and Gencos are saying we have obligations to banks, to people, and we also need to make a profit. So this doesn't work in our favor. But these other guys are saying we've done the maths, and the maths is saying that you have room for negotiation. Now the thing is, the spillover effect is what's also worrying the distributors and the generators, because now every state is entitled to, each Genco is supposed to establish a subsidiary in that state. So it's not like maybe just one company that runs it across regions. So they're afraid that if this state comes with a reduction, this one will come with certain reductions, and they are thinking that they might not be able to carry it. For the consumers, it works best for us, right? Because any reduction in price, this is a country where things go up and hardly come down. So the thing is, let everybody come to the round table. Let's actually know how much it costs to generate this thing? What are the bank loans and obligations? How is it going to be restructured, refactored to make sure? Because we also do not want the Gencos to pack up and go and the Discos to pack up and go. Yeah. But at the same time, we also do not want the burden to just be on a certain set of consumers. Bear in mind, this is just band A reduction. There are still other bands.
And A to E. It's A to E.
Exactly. So I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. But it's a good one for the consumers, if you ask me.
All right. I also have to say good morning. Welcome to Owadia Ime.
Good morning.
It seems like every time you're around, the conversation is around the sparking hour and power electricity.
I will stay with Joshua's analysis. I will stay with Joshua's analysis.
Okay, just to delve away from that a bit about what the cost is and what the cost is not. Part of the contention for this Discos and the Gencos are saying that states do not have the necessary power to actually renegotiate these terms with them. They're still saying that it goes down to the NERC. That's where it is. We know that some certain states, there's a case of whether the legal framework is set in place for these states to actually negotiate with these Gencos and Discos or not. And if they don't, what needs to be done for that they can have that power to do so, backed by Electricity Act in 2023, and which states can actually do that right now at this point in time?
Well, I'm not really sure what the framework says or who they can negotiate with in terms of pricing. I would have to ask my legal friends about that. So maybe over the weekend I'll do that. But the fact remains this: it's a demand and supply issue. That's one. And then secondly, like I always say, the power business is an inverted pyramid. If the consumers are not paying, then nobody gets money, whether it's the transmission or the or the generation. Now, the other part we also need to look at is how much electricity in terms of transmission can get to Enugu State, at what cost, because I know most of the Discos and transmissions have metered their major substation. And then the second part of that is how much are you being able to account for when you send it to the consumer? Have you taken all this into consideration? I want the prices of electricity to come down, and like I always tell people about electricity, there are two parts of electricity. There's the commercial part, which is where those big industries and big corporates they pay for it. All over the world they pay huge sums for electricity. And then there's the social side, where the likes of you and I will pay, which most times is what you call the contribution effect, meaning that some of the variable costs would always be covered, or most of your variable costs would always be covered by those kind of money, because it's a large chunk of the population. And nobody seems to look at that. And like I've said several times, band A at 206 cannot pay for the electricity in Nigeria. It will never pay. It's not rocket science. Because if 60-70% of the population are not getting electricity, even at 1 naira, 70% of the population is 140 million people. But let's even use the households. Are you with me? Ikeja alone has over 1 million households. So if 70% of that, 700,000 people, are not paying for electricity because they are not metered, you can account for how much electricity they get. You can account for the ATC&C. I can't remember the full meaning now. But those things count, because those things are the things that go into your variable costing of electricity. And then you have to maintain all this thing. Yeah, but you see,
is it
the mechanism? Before when most of let me just give you a brief history. When most of these companies were taken over, 75% of the income of Discos came from, what do you call it, those billings that everybody shout about. 25% of it came from those who had prepaid and all. And let's also remember, when I pay for electricity at the beginning of the month and I pay 10,000 naira, you don't account for the income until when I use it. So if 75% of you came from estimated bill and people kicked back, and then NEC, in order to be able to manage those things, came together with the Discos and said there must be a system to the madness. People cannot just pay for those wastages that we see in the system. So you cannot, I think it's about 70% of estimated power that you can bill. Now that's another part, and everybody continues to shout about, oh, the discos do this. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. The government and the government parastatals that owe 4 trillion. If you put this money back into the business, then I can now start telling you, okay, I've paid my debts. Let's not talk about the bank loans, where $4.6 billion was paid in 2013. Are you with me? Based on certain agreements that 90% of them the government have not met. Exchange rate is one. Are you with me? Infrastructure development. You came out with MAP, and then the government decided that they were going to create a system whereby some people were favored towards providing meters because they had some agreements with the power holding company before then. These are realities. So how do you do that? And then you come out with MAP, you go ahead and agree meter fees. I think it was originally 75,000 and 100,000 or 125,000, without the consideration that when you bring in these meters, most of them are not produced in Nigeria, that you're going to pay a duty. And then for 6 months you were battling on whether 25% duty was going to be waived or not. But you sat down in a committee where the customs, which reports to the Ministry of Finance, was not carried along in terms of duty. So if the negligence spreads across, yes, I know they are private companies and we all work for private companies, but at the end of the day, yes, electricity bills should go down, in my own opinion, but there must be some sense to that madness.
All right, thank you very much. We're at the midway point of the show here. City Press, the first half brought to you by Amstel. Let's move into the second half of City Press here on Breakfast in the City on City 105.1.
What does the